to cap off the show, we're going to be talking about the long-awaited Matt Reeves' interpretation of the Batman. This follows the Batman as he investigates Gotham City's clandestine corruption as a serial killer called the Riddler targets the city's elite. Now, I'm going to be honest, this is the best movie of 2022 so far. It's only March, but still, I feel like with how just bananas this movie is, I feel like it's worth saying. So I was blown away by this film. I was honestly blown away by this film. The closer that we got to this film, like the more excited I got, the higher my expectations were, and this film really just knocked it out of the park. It really did.
Yeah, I absolutely love this film, and it's crazy because we've been waiting for this film for so long. Ever since it was announced, the first trailer, and for me, just from the trailers alone, as far as what I saw in a Batman movie and what I ideally wanted, it met all of that from the trailers. Then watching the movie, it actually surpassed it a bit more. And I absolutely thought this movie was great. I liked the tonality. I liked how Matt Reeves was very meticulous as well. And slow with some of the camera angles and shots. Like, it felt deliberate, it felt intentional. And throughout the entire film, you just get that sense and feeling of tension, right? Even when certain moments aren't tense necessarily, everything that happened before just carried over. It constantly carried over. And I think Matt Reeves just did an excellent job in portraying a young Batman, not necessarily an origin movie, but a version of Bruce Wayne that hasn't fully donned the identity and the mask of what being Batman is, instead of a tunneled, bitter vision of the idea of vengeance, but also not realizing how it can affect the lower people as well. And I think Matt Reeves just did an absolute stellar job of showing Batman's journey and Gotham's journey at the same time.
Yep. And I'm happy that Matt Reeves was the guy in charge of helming this film. He's got a great pedigree behind him. He did the last couple Planet of the Apes films. He did Cloverfield. He did Let Me In. And it's weird. This film felt enough like his other films to fit into his filmography. Like, he brought his own artistic style to it that made it feel like a Matt Reeves film. But at the same time, he did a great job differentiating this film from the other films in his filmography. There's just one great scene after another. One particular scene that's also in the trailer too, Batman walking away from the flames towards the Penguin with the camera upside down. I remember everyone clapping in the theater. That's a memory I'm not going to forget for a very long time. My buddy Roberto, he's sitting next to me, and that scene was just so great. He literally turned to me, he's just like, "That scene, wow, that was such a great scene. Oh my God!" While the movie's still playing, he literally took the time out of watching the movie, and taking it in to literally comment to me, "Holy shit, that was awesome." I loved the gloomy, authentic world that Gotham, or really, the world of Gotham, which I honestly felt pulled into. I felt the despair, not just from the tonality of everything, but just from the visuals as well. This movie is gorgeous to look at. The action sequences are just spectacular. Again, one car chase scene in particular just really had me on the edge of my seat. And the biggest thing I admire about this film is just how ambitious it is. This honestly is, I'd say even more so than The Dark Knight, is the most ambitious Batman film. And it's definitely the most ambitious film that I've ever seen Matt Reeves take on. Yeah. And just the size and scale of this and how well he pulled everything off made this worth seeing in IMAX.
Yeah, and one of the things The Dark Knight is an amazing film by itself, and I hear a lot of people trying to compare it to that, and I understand, but to me, this was also a risky Batman movie. It is crazy to me how now modern day WB creates a film like The Joker and is beloved by many others, crossing $1 billion. And then they take almost that same risk of giving Batman a different tone, different tonality, not making it as family friendly, really, as you may think, compared to maybe other Batman films, and really flipping the idea of Batman in the movies upside down on its own head. And I really like that they gave Matt Reeves the range and the creativity to make the Batman film that he wanted to make. And that's something that he was discussing during an interview, was that he wanted to make the Batman film he wanted to make. He didn't want to do a Batman film that was connected to, I guess, the rest of the DCEU as they were planning with Ben Affleck's Batman film. And so, again, like, one of the things, and if I had to compare to The Dark Knight, and this was one of my issue with The Dark Knight, was that Gotham was not its own character necessarily in the film, or didn't feel as lived in necessarily. Didn't feel unique. Where, to me, the Batman, if like the cinematography, the color palette, the set design really made Gotham feel like its own entity, its own character, how it influences others, and I love that. And that reminds me of Batman the Animated Series vibes, and even some of the comics as well. I really like the detective aspect. That's something we don't really see a lot in Batman films, unfortunately, which I'm happy they did it with this. And there are also certain gadgets that they used in a creative way that you didn't see in other Batman properties that I really enjoyed too. I was kind of freaking out during one of the things with and my friend Will was next to me like, dude, what's going on? Like, I'll tell you later. I just think this is so cool how they're doing it. But again, like, I love how lived in, how distraught Gotham is, how you get a sense that you should not be living here. You know?
Exactly. Like, you get the sense that if you're just walking around, like, something terrible can happen to you at any time, and almost nothing can be done about it. Like, that's the sense of despair I got from this movie. That's the sense of despair I got from this world. I'm happy you mentioned, like, the whole detective Batman aspect too, because, like you said, that's not, at least for me personally, that's definitely not an element I'd seen in Batman before. I've only really seen, like, the Dark Knight trilogy, and I never read any of the comic books. But seeing this new element, like, I thought was really cool. And I was actually interested in solving the mystery too. Like, on top of Batman, like, fighting bad guys and, tangling with all these infamous villains, I was interested in the mystery that he was trying to solve too. And I was trying to, work it out myself as the movie was playing out. The comparisons to David Fincher's Zodiac and Seven are definitely on point. And I thought it tackled the theme of, like, government corruption really well. I loved seeing just how deep-seated the corruption really is in Gotham. I love what they did with that. And every character was interesting and got a moment to shine. Like, there's a lot of characters in this film that, are meant to be a big deal somehow, and no one felt like a throwaway. No one felt like they were just rammed in there. Everyone fit in very well. The roles that they all ended up playing, like, felt not just necessary, but unexpected in a way too, and how they play out.
Yeah, it all felt interconnected in an integral way that I really enjoyed. However, there are some things I wasn't too fond of, and that's really the Batman-Catwoman relationship, and how, to me, it felt a bit rushed, if not forced in. I understand. I know, the type of relationship they have, but just how they went about it, it kind of felt odd, to me at least.
Really?
Yeah, that's just me personally. Like, it just felt odd in certain ways, because it's just like, okay, I understand that it was like, maybe she's attractive, maybe to the mystery, but again, certain things that happened, I was just like, you didn't have to go that far. But the ending, I also thought I really liked the ending. But here's one thing: I didn't expect it to go as longer as I thought it would, because of something that happened. And I think because of that, it did feel a bit unfilling to a certain degree, but not too much, because I still enjoyed the movie overall. Like I said, the entire ride through, the journey from the beginning, middle, and end, it felt tense. I felt interested. And one of the biggest aspects as to why it felt interesting and it felt tense was the Riddler. And Paul Dano knocked it out of the park with this character. I like that it was a modern take on Riddler. It was inspired by this, he's a serial killer in a sense. Yep. And you just see what one man can do because because of certain things. I can't really go into spoilers.
That happened. Like, that certain things that happen earlier in his life. I think that's the most that we could say without giving anything away. Which, let's be honest, like that's how a lot of villains, like, you know, that's how a lot of their origin stories really go, right? You know, like, oh, something happened in their upbringing or whatever that fucked them up the way they did. And I agree with you. I think Paul Dano was awesome as the Riddler. He did the crazy serial killer thing really well. You know, they keep, you know, there's a joke going around out there that Ted Cruz is a Zodiac killer. I would like to start the hashtag, that hashtag Paul Dano is the Zodiac killer. Let's see if that sticks. Just kidding, kind of. I thought also, too, that Robert Pattinson, I think he stands tall with the other Batman. I really do.
Yeah.
I remember when he was first announced that he was going to be the next Batman, there were a lot of people that weren't on board with him, and I'm glad to say that I was not one of them. So who's laughing now? I felt like he had a very commanding presence as both Batman and Bruce Wayne. It definitely felt, at least for Bruce Wayne, it definitely felt like a Bruce Wayne that I didn't see in the Dark Knight trilogy, and I honestly felt like Pattinson disappeared into the role. Like, anytime I saw him on screen, I'm like, oh, that's not Robert Pattinson, like, that's Bruce Wayne. That's the Batman, and he's come such a long way from Twilight. Like, I don't think he should get any crap for being in Twilight anymore and just how bad he was in that movie. Like, that's, you know, we can move past that now. He even did other films after Twilight too that I'm like, okay, he could be a solid Batman. You know, and I've mentioned over and over again The Lighthouse. Darius, I'm pretty sure you've seen that movie too. And that just showed, if he wasn't in a movie like that, then I would have been like, no, he wouldn't be a good Batman. He wouldn't have the experience that he needs under his belt to play someone like Batman the way that I wanted him to do it. But, you know, he did, and he did very well.
Yeah, and
I thought Selena... So, go ahead.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that, the Bruce Wayne aspect. I think that goes into what Matt Reeves wanted to do with Bruce Wayne, is that Bruce Wayne, you know, one of the great psychologies of Batman and why people, you know, why I like this character is that Bruce Wayne is the mask. You know, Batman is his true self. And so I like how Matt Reeves was really playing the toy of, like, this isn't an origin story, but this is an origin of Batman being what he's actually meant to be and not this, what he thinks he needs to be. You know, and I think there's a very different perspective with that, even in that wording. And I think seeing a Bruce Wayne that is still bitter, still distraught by his past and how he almost can't really move on, and it's about the mission. That is something I really like, because that is Batman, really. And you can kind of see Bruce Wayne is slowly fading away. He really is. Batman's kind of taking over, but yeah, oh man, this movie was just brilliant in a lot of ways. So
yeah, no, and like I said, Pattinson was amazing. Selena Kyle or Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle as Catwoman, I thought she was great too. I honestly love the chemistry between her and Robert Pattinson, and even then, just their little, I guess, romantic suggestions between the two of them. Like, I'm gonna guess, I thought they were enticing. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like it was something that had to be rammed down my throat. I liked how a lot of it was just suggestion. You know, you see certain things happen, but I love the dynamic that they had. Colin Farrell, he is unrecognizable as the Penguin. Holy shit. Like, I really tried hard to see Colin Farrell, and I just couldn't. I really couldn't.
He disappeared. It's like, that's nuts at what they did with Penguin. And I love what they did with Penguin too. There's a lot of stuff I like about the movie that my nitpicks kind of, the good overshadows it. So. Yeah.
You know, and again, like, it's weird. Like, nothing really stands out to me so far, like, in this movie, as far as like things that like really threw me off. Like, maybe a couple things that were said here and there, but I'm like, it's a 3-hour movie. I'm not going to let a couple of like odd lines like ruin a 3-hour movie for me. Also, John Turturro, he really took me by surprise as Carmine Falcone, the mob boss. And again, the role that he ends up playing, like, I thought he ended up being a side character, but no, his role, without giving it away, ends up being much bigger than I possibly imagined. I thought Jeffrey Wright and Andy Serkis were terrific as Jim Gordon and Alfred Pennyworth. And one of the biggest things that stands out in this film that I think a lot of people are going to remember this film for is the music. The musical score from Michael Giacchino. This is the same guy who did the scores for Up, Ratatouille, The Incredibles. This is just another film that just shows how talented he is. I loved how the score wasn't just background music. Like, it stood out, but at the same time, the scenes in this film weren't reliant on his score to make them interesting.
Exactly.
And I remember, like, Roberto, again, another Roberto story, like, he made a prediction of the score being remembered for years to come, along with the score from The Dark Knight. And I think he's right on the money with that.
Yep. I think the best way for me to sum up this film is going to be how I'm going to sum up The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight still plays an important role, I think, even today with some of the themes, and is iconic for that reason. And I think the Batman is going to be just that, but now in a new modern day society, or, an updated society compared to that many years ago. And I think the Batman is on almost the same playing field of how great it was to The Dark Knight, both visually, all of that, with the themes and everything. So I think they're really top notch. If I had to choose, people might not be happy with the choice I would make.
It's weird. Like, I still don't know which movie's better. Like, I'm not sure if this beats The Dark Knight, but if it doesn't, it comes very, very close. I loved how lifelike this movie felt. It didn't feel like a cartoon. It didn't feel like a comic book, which I really enjoyed. It was a nice change of pace.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily better, but it's just, it's going to be cups of tea for different people. But I think with what the Dark Knight symbolized is on par that what the Batman is today. And that's where it's that's why to me it's it's on an equal playing field. Like, they're both great in their own way, but they're also iconic. And the reason, I guess, why we love why we love the Dark Knight is going to be in a similar boat as to why people love the Batman as well. So, and that's honestly, I think, to me, a great way of how I would sum it up and put it. So,
this film definitely stands out from the other Batman films. Definitely among the better Batman films. Again, dense story, sheer ambition. I love the new directions that they took the Batman character in, and it was worth seeing in IMAX. It was a great night out with my friends. So yeah, it was a great time. Definitely worth the hour drive out to Stony Brook this past weekend. So for all you guys that are still with us, what did you all think of the Batman? Was it worth the wait? Was it worth the hype? Is it worth the extra $1.50 that you're gonna have to pay at an AMC theater to watch this film? Leave your thoughts in the comment section.